Namaste, namaste. Hi everyone. Instagram is letting you guys know that I'm going live right now. Hello, namaste. Namaste everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday. It's great to see you all here. Another fantastic day. I'm doing a joint live today with Jeff. Is going to be really helpful for you guys to pay attention to this live because we're going to be talking about what happens when successful people stop being successful. So let me get Jeff to join you, honey. I had a long conversation with Jeff a couple of days ago. Here he
Good
is.
morning.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
Jeff.
I'm doing
I'm great.
well,
How are
thank
you?
you. So,
Nice. Nice. So I was letting everyone know that we had this long conversation a couple of days ago about what happens when successful people who have it all going on for them, business-wise, relationship-wise, and in all the other areas. And all of a sudden, everything stops. You might lose your job, or if you're self-employed, anything that you touch anymore is not going anywhere, and you start losing money, losing yourself, and it could be in relationship and all that. So I thought our conversation was very interesting, and I thought it could be very helpful for everyone else to listen. And without any further ado, let's dive in.
yeah,
Do you want to
sure. I
start?
mean, on this subject of really having to start over, I've observed a lot of people, even, before I got into coaching, there's a lot of people in the world that have encountered kind of an explosion or an implosion, maybe both, of their lives. They lost maybe people were married. I wasn't married, but I was with somebody for a decade, and maybe they lose their marriage, they lose their career, they lose their home, they lose everything. And, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you have? What tools do you have to cope, survive, and reinvent yourself when you not only have to reinvent one area of your life, but when you have to reinvent your entire life? And it does occur, and this is what we were talking about, it does occur that any action you take or effort you put into something seems almost counterproductive. And you just think, well, and life starts to not make sense in a certain way. And so then you might, if, depending on where your belief systems and spirituality are at, you might reach for that. If you don't have that, you might reach for that newly because you're thinking, okay, there might be something at work here that's bigger than me, and I need that in order to cope, in order to find a path forward and make sense of all that's occurring.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think it is?
Well, it
That's
is
the
a million
million-dollar
dollar
question.
question. And, in in my journey, there has been a parallel of what are the objective tools I can take. And there has been a alteration in my approach to how I move through life. When I was a kid,
Mhm.
life was very simple in that I took action, I got a result. I took action, I got a result. I wanted a job, I went and got one. I wanted to date, I went and dated. It just, everything I did, there was an immediate result to my action. And to me, when we look at a lot of like success coaching, a lot of success coaches or people who are successful in business might sit on a stage or stand on a stage and say, you know, if you want to be successful, just take action. Just take action. It's like, well, yeah, that's obvious. Just take action. If you don't take action, nothing's going to happen. And when I was younger, that was the truth for me. That's how it occurred to me. Life occurred. I did that. You know, I took action. I got a result. That's successful. And what was different for me is I went through one of these periods back in 2016 to 2018 where I had a life and that life imploded. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. I remember when I was a kid, I listened to all that personal development stuff. Take action. And I did. I took action on my career. I took action on my romantic affairs. I took action in my health. However, this time, I didn't get results. In fact, not only did I not get results, but it was like the more action I took, the worse things got. The more action I took on my career, the more opportunities would move away from me. The more action I took on my dating life, the more women would move away from me. The more I took action on my health, like all of these health issues came up out of nowhere. And I was really left grappling with this experience that is life. Like I don't understand it. Is there a glitch? Is there a glitch in my matrix? You know, and it really occurred to me like, uh-oh, there's a virus that got in my software. There's a glitch in my software. I need to reinstall the software or something. So, you know, everything started to occur to me differently. And I started to go on a spiritual pursuit for sure. It wasn't as simple as, you know, I found Jesus and started praying. It wasn't that simple, because it wasn't like I found Jesus, I started praying, and all of a sudden life started turning out. That didn't happen. And so it's caused this kind of perpetual inquiry, and being mindful of my observation of what is working and what isn't. And in all of this kind of what occurred as rejection, failure, there was a persistent or a couple persistent things that were working. And so I had to learn to cultivate that intuition. I had to cultivate a degree of intuition of saying, okay, well, my traditional actions aren't working, but there are things that are working in my life. What are those things? And that's what led me here talking to you. That's what led me into coaching. I never sat one day and said, I know a whole lot. I'm going to go coach people. I never had that experience. What was happening was that in my efforts in action taking where things wouldn't work, I observed that I was having conversations with people that made a positive impact for them. And so in a little bit of the search for meaning that we often do, why am I here? I started to assign a degree of significance to that. Like, okay, I'm being observant that I'm having conversations with people that seem to matter to them. Maybe I need to have conversations with people. Let me see if there's something there, and let it be. I didn't force the issue. I just let it be. And I noticed that did happen. And that's a bit of the about, you know, and I want to kind of pause here and give you let you kind of jump in. But, you know, obviously there's still a lot more to unpack here.
Yeah. In my experience, I have seen many of my friends or people who have coached during the years, is that when they lose everything and they realize and they see that things doesn't work out as it used to be, usually they come into spirituality. So it's not that I'm saying spirituality is the way to hide behind spirituality and say, oh, everything is okay. And, you know, I don't mean that, but I have seen many of my friends when they lost everything, they either moved, they went to India, or they started to find more about the main question that we always ask ourselves, who am I? Then it suddenly is like that question pops up, who am I? And what is this life about? And as you know, we were talking about non-duality, and I was saying that all along, I realized that, you know, I knew always that the reality, as we call it, reality is not real. And I knew about Matrix, and I knew about everything that's going on. And we were talking about it. I shared this with you that last month I had so many projects going on. You know, I want to start my English course, and I wanted to do this, and I have to start getting on my retreats, and my whole team was working out. Let's do this, get this done. And then I slipped and I fell down. And it was the pain that I experienced. It was so crucial that I almost fainted, you know. And when I got back to myself, got back to my body, and this pain was so crucial, I started asking the question, because I always know, we always know that the universe is talking to us all the time, whether the question is, do we pay attention or not? Are we listening to the universe or the higher power? So I was like, what is this about? And all of a sudden it was like, you know, what do you think you're doing? Is just like all this thing, doing this, doing that, and you're not really being. And they were showing me scenes. I was seeing scenes that when I didn't really care about the spirituality, and I always said that with all honesty, that I wasn't a seeker of knowledge, I wasn't looking for spirituality, I wasn't a meditator or doing yoga or any of that. And it was like all of a sudden everything just fell in my lap. And I was thinking, like, where is this coming from? You know, if you are, I was very successful, like as a coach, and also pursuing my acting and doing all this thing. I was interested in entertainments and movies and all of this. And suddenly it was like everything stopped. So what we were talking about is that, what is it? Is it us who makes a decision, or is it a higher power who has a, as we call it, the divine plan? And eventually I just surrendered. And I think something that it's very important for people to get, and I see a lot of people don't get it. What is this a state of surrendering? Because a lot of people have heard surrendering, and we might surrender at times, but not all the time. So I came back again to realize that, oh, I am doing a lot of things, and that's not why I'm here. I'm kind of got pulled in again into this matrix, and I need to pull back and stop doing everything that I was doing. So when we get, and we talked about this non-duality, if our reality is not real, and we cannot really trust our six senses, because it's all perception of the mind and the way the mind and ego is looking at it, then again, what do we do? So back to you. Now that we all know about not all this non-duality, now that we all know that we are not our minds, we are not our thoughts, our reality is being created by the mind and the ego, and almost me been talking about this for years, and a lot of people that follows me or they have a session with me, they say they get it, but they don't really get it. So now that you get to this point, what do, Jeff? Now that you realize, okay, it doesn't matter how much I try, and it's like the more I try, things gets worse.
I want to
what do?
See if we can dovetail, because you said something in there that I want to comment to. You said, well, some people don't know if there's a you didn't say the word purpose, but I kind of heard, you know, meaning in there. People are not sure if there is, there isn't, and dovetail that with the non-duality of this objective and subjective experience of life and talk a little bit about that. So to dovetail it, you say, like, is there a higher power at work? One of the perhaps oddest experiences in my life is that right before all of this, you know, demolition started to happen and this implosion started to occur in my life, I actually did start to put out to the universe. I wasn't sure exactly what I was speaking to, but I was, you know, intentioning and speaking to this higher power that I was ready to accept my life's purpose. I had never said those words before. I was pursuing my goals. I wrote my goals in a journal, and I was taking action to pursue my goals. And for the first time, I started to say, I'm ready to accept the path that's mine, why I'm here. That's weird. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't know if I even believed what I was saying, but I was saying it. And almost immediately after was everything just imploding in my life. And that's when I started to take action, and it didn't start to work. Now, get this, because it's like, it's almost as like, you know, sometimes you'll hear people in a religious context say, you can do life or you can surrender. You can do life or you can surrender to the higher power. And that's kind of what my life occurred as. That's what this all occurred as. It's like, so I was saying, I'm ready to surrender. But then when the surrendering was at my door, I didn't want to surrender. It's like, no, I'm going to do life. Like, I don't know what I was asking for. I thought you were just going to give me some road signs and I was going to keep going. And it's like, no. You said you were going to surrender, but you're not surrendering. You still want to do life. Okay. Now, that's a more spiritual concept. To dovetail that with this idea of non-duality, and to you know, clarify that for anyone who's listening who might not know what we're talking about, who might listen to this later. When we talk about this non-duality, and I say objective and subjective, it's saying that when we experience life, there is an objective and a subjective. I like to use something like sitting at a park, but I heard somebody talking about a diet recently, and I really loved it. So I'm going to borrow their explanation, which she was saying, you know, I really have an objective experience and a subjective experience of going on a diet. It's like, objectively, I'm choosing different foods and eating different foods, but subjectively, man, I really experience being on a diet. And that's one way to look. Yeah. That's one context to kind of get what we're talking about. And another is, as I said, I like sitting at a park. You know, it's like I'm sitting at a park, I'm looking at the grass and the trees and whatever might be there, hearing the sounds, feeling the breeze. And that's all a sensory experience, which is really objective. That's just what's occurring that my senses are sensing. But then there's a subjective experience. Well, what's giving that subjective experience? Is it a sense of anticipation, a sense of peace, calm, joy? Is that even the experience? And questioning what that experience is. So we can kind of get that there's this non-duality, that there's this objective kind of fact-based, sensory-based experience of life, and perhaps a more subtle subjective experience of what's going on. We dovetail that with this idea of life reconstruction, cultivating intuition, because what has become important for me, an important skill for me, is to stop and become both observant and intuitive, to say what's working. As I said before, pay attention to what's working. And it's a little bit like you're in a maze, and there's these, or a labyrinth, and there's these different pathways you can choose. And, you know, to be a little bit cliche, following the light. You say, okay, well, I've noticed that in what occurs is the darkness of my life right now, that people are benefiting from conversations with me. So it's like, what's working? And you follow that. And that's like, it's kind of like the little, it's like a video game, you know, it's like there's a little blip of light in the video games. You're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go to that blip of light in the video game, and that's going to lead me to the next area, into the next area, into the next area. And while that might not be an obvious skill, like, hey, you want to lift weights, go lift weights, it might not be as obvious as that. It is a skill nonetheless. And, you know, you've been in this area a long time of cultivating that ability to listen to these invisible cues, and say, okay, well, these invisible cues are coming from somewhere. Let me learn to pay attention to them, quiet the senses. You observe what is happening with your senses, and then you get rid of that. You don't get rid of it. You set it aside. And you say, okay, well, if I set my sensory experience aside, what's left? What's there? And then follow a direction there.
So here's the deal. Like, when we come back to surrendering, the fact that we know, or we say that we do know, that our reality is not real, and we all know about the matrix and how the matrix is playing with us. But the fact that we are human beings and just to be is the hardest place to be, you know? And this is what I practice every day. From the minute that I wake up, I do the teaching myself, you know, from the minutes that I wake up and I become conscious and I see this is another day, right away, I say what I usually say repeatedly. I say, oh, last night I was sleeping and I was dreaming, which I have a lot of dreams at night. And then I get glimpse of my dream here and there and that stuff. But at the moment, I don't even get myself bothered to catch up and remember what was that dream about and what was this or that. The only thing that I'm conscious of is that I say, oh, last night I was dreaming and my mind took me many places and many events happened that I would say, you know, sometimes I'm just flying and I'm doing all this crazy thing. And we're jumping from one space to another. And I see in my dream that suddenly my father is alive and I'm again 10 years old. And I see how in my dream, anything is possible. You know, the death suddenly becomes alive. You know, we are going, so we understand the concept of no time, which is anything can happen. And we understand that there is no life and death. So the death is suddenly alive and the one who is alive is moving or doing whatever. And I said, I had no control over my dream last night. My mind just basically took me anywhere that it pleases. And if I'm not aware from this second, when I wake up, I don't separate myself from the mind and ego. My mind and ego will take me into another dream or another hypnosis. So what I'm doing is constantly, the minute I catch myself that my mind is starting a conversation, I stop it right away. And I told everyone last week, we can even do this by asking who is thinking, or who is experiencing, or who is feeling, who is behind all this thinking and feeling and experiencing. And right away, the mind's attention comes to the question, who am I? Who is behind it? And what I do is suddenly I focus my eyes, which is the wrong perception of whatever I see as my reality, in my imagination, I just turn the eyes that are looking outside, move them and bring them inside. So I start imagining, looking inward, and however long it takes, I stay there. And I think the practice is that usually people don't really get it how important this practice is. And by constantly doing this, of course, it's difficult because the thinking machine is making thoughts constantly at every second. But every time that I stop that and I turn my eyes inward, I come to that few millisecond of the silence. And then I remind myself again that the reality out there doesn't exist. So I don't have to worry about, am I going to do my TED Talk? Should I write my TED Talk now? Should I do this? Should I start a retreat or whatever? I have to constantly remind myself that you're a human being. You just have to be, and you just have to be, and let go of all that temptations and this or that. So, but what do you do now, Jeff? Now that you're saying, okay, nothing is working. This is what I do all day. This is what helps me from morning to night. What do you do?
As I get into that, I want to kind of distinguish a word. We say non-duality, and the reason why we say non-duality is because we observe that there is a physical experience and a spiritual experience happening, and they are inseparable. They are inseparable. And one of the reasons why this practice can be so challenging for some and why it's so important is because we've structured society for the physical. We've structured society for the survival of our physical body. And really, I mean, why do you think we have jobs and buildings and cars and roads and phones? It's like what we're doing is really reinforcing the objective sensory experience. And it can be easy for our subjective skill set to atrophy or never develop in the first place. So what I do is I still take action every day. It's spending some time each day. The morning is the best. And, admittedly, I'm not always the best at getting this done first thing in the morning. I do it each day in nurturing that skill of taking however long it takes. And it doesn't have to take that long. It could take a few minutes, really, to just stop the action of life and say, okay, what's the sensory experience that's happening? Like you said, asking the question, who am I? Where am I? Where am I? Who am I? Where am I? What's doing the thinking? And there is an irony. Like when I ask that question, who's doing the thinking, my mind goes quiet. It's like a little child that's like causing trouble. And it's like, oh, dad's gonna find me. So that's the only thing that really manages to quiet the mind is to ask, okay, who's doing the thinking? And then it gets quiet for a moment. And I do feel that, and I could be wrong, but I do observe that when I do that practice, I'm a bit more receptive. I'm in a state of receivership to kind of communication and information. And I take action. I still take action because it's not like there's a physical piece of paper that shows up in my mailbox that goes, okay, Jeff, here's your orders for the day. Go do this. So I tend to acknowledge the communication in my thoughts. And there are people out there, especially people that are really deeply religious, that credit 100% of their thoughts to God. Like, I don't think my thoughts. God gives me these thoughts. So I'm entertaining that concept a little bit. Like, okay, where are these thoughts coming from? And if I have anything that remotely seems intelligent, I'm like, okay, well, let me write that down or think about that for a minute and, see where's that coming from? Why did I get that? And take action. So it's like, I'm going to do both. I'm going to be the human doing, as I think you said, right? Like human doing and human being. I'm going to do both. I am going to do my best to be in a state of listening and receivership, so that whatever thoughts or information, sometimes you'll say downloads, whatever downloads, I might get people like that word these days, I'm able to receive those downloads. And I still take action towards my goals. So that's my human doing. I'm still a physical being taking actions towards all of my goals while being receptive, by being observant. And I'm going to kind of presence one other idea here that I've been really cultivating, what for me, I'm going to call a nonverbal experience of life, which still could be sensory. But let's say I'm having a conversation with somebody, I'm on the phone, it could be a client, it could be whatever, it could be a friend. And I'm trying to be and bring my awareness to what is the experience that is the non-sensory experience taking place here. And questions give us power. Asking questions can bring us answers. If we don't ask the question, we might miss the communication. So I hang out with you, we're talking, we're two humans doing talking. But I might also ask the question, well, what's happening here that's not said? What's happening here that's nonverbal? What's happening here that's not experienced by my senses? So while I'm doing the talking, I'm being receptive to whatever might be there as well. And sometimes I'm nurturing this skill like anyone else. So sometimes I get really clear direction on what to do next. Sometimes I don't get anything, and that's part of the practice. Sometimes it helps to slow things down and make sure I'm present in the moment, and that alone can allow you to see that blinky light to give you a direction of where to go next.
Yeah, last week I did 2 lives in English and Farsi, and I brought in the question. And for everyone who's here, I also want you guys to be more engaging and let us know, what do you think? Do you think you are the one who is behind the thoughts? You are the thinker of the thoughts? Or do you think there is a higher power who is orchestrating the whole thing, everything that's going on? But what I was saying, Jeff, is that sometimes I just have to contemplate, and especially I told you last month when this happened, and I fell in that excruciating pain, I just asked the question. I just asked and I said, okay, what is going on? And who was the one who was giving me the answer? I was jokingly talking to Sarah the other day. I said, I don't know if the universe is playing game with me, or is it my subconscious mind, stopping, because, as we all know, the hidden agendas of our subconscious mind. I said, you have to be really clear to really know, to be at this moment, you have to be so present to see even what you're hearing, where is it coming from? But what was funny is that they were showing me different scenes. And I was talking about that last week in my live. I said, when I had my car accident 30 some years ago, that I experienced near-death experience, when I look back today, I have to say, I used to race car. You know, I'm very fast and speedy, and sometimes they say you're driving like nuts because I could go between the cars. I used to race car. And when I look back at that accident, I'm thinking, how come I couldn't stop hitting that car? You know what I mean? How, because I'm so when I drive, even though it might seems to a lot of people that I was driving like a lunatic, but I was quite aware of, I was seeing the side from this side, from that side, from behind the traffic, how it's going, and there was no way for me to maneuver or do anything. It was like a pressure that hits me and I couldn't stop it. So what is that? Or like when I'm looking at my fall last month, I'm thinking, logically, nothing makes sense. I mean, the shower is dry, my feet are dry. What are the chances of me slipping and falling that bad, you know? And I had many experiences like that. Like many years ago, I moved in Lake Arrowhead, and it was a time when I was just when I experienced already that nothing was happening. I was at that state. You know, I did my seminar in Dubai, I did the seminar in Turkey 3 months later, and then all of a sudden everything stopped. And I said, okay, now that nothing is stopped, I'm just going to move to Lake Arrowhead, to the mountain, quiet, meditation all the time, just walking and silencing the mind. And one day I came from my deep meditation to take the stairs down, and I fell. And it's a tiny, this is an old historical house in Lake Arrowhead. And the stairs are very narrow. And the whole time, and I'm banging myself and rolling down, I'm thinking, why can't I just hold my hand against these two walls and stop? Something, there is a higher power that was pushing me down. And of course, I had a Kundalini experience, and I was like, can't I just have a Kundalini experience without taking all this heartache and pain and fainting and all that, you know? So that's what I was saying. And in that day, when I asked the question, why am I experiencing this? They said, because you are doing too much, and that's not their plan, right? And they were showing me is like in that moment, I'm negotiating. Who am I negotiating with? I call it the universe, right? The higher power. I was like, okay, I get it. Okay, I understand. I surrender. And the minute that I said, I surrender, it was like the mind was asking the question, can I really surrender? Because this cannot be an empty promise. And I said, I said, okay, I surrender. My mind was thinking, am I being genuine? Can I really surrender and stop everything? And when I said yes, Jeff, that I came to my body, and that excruciating pain is gone. And my whole body starts shaking and vibrating. And in that moment, when my whole body is, you know, shaking and vibrating, I came to myself again and said, what happened to that crucial pain? All of a sudden, everything stopped, right? So this is what I'm talking about. Like, who is that? What is that power that's talking to us? And I was trying to negotiate. I was doing business in that moment. Can I just do the TED Talk? No. And the answer that I was hearing is this. You can try it. You can put all your time and all that stuff, but it's not going to go anywhere. You can try this, but it's not going to go anywhere. And they took me back to when I did my seminar in Dubai. How did that all came about? I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't planning on it. Up to today, that's almost 20 years ago, Jeff. And when I look back, I said, where did the idea come from? How did everything got put together, right? And the universe said, and when we wanted to stop it, it stopped. Didn't matter. So this is the key question, that can we really trust that there is a
there's
divine
something
plan?
there in your sharing for me, and I want to talk about it, which is there are belief systems, because there are belief systems that don't believe this. There are belief systems that kind of in the reincarnation belief systems that each incarnation we choose to come here and we choose what we're going to work on. We choose the obstacles that we have to overcome. And it's one of the things that I have become observant in. And it's hard to observe it in yourself. It's far easier to observe it in others, is watching people in their being really have the same challenge show up over and over and over again. Again, it's like the video game. It's like they keep coming up against the boss. They're playing the game really well, and then they come up with the boss, and they're like, they lose. And to kind of get that specific, like for you, it always occurs in this taking on too much, trying to do too much, trying to go too fast, and then there's a physical injury. And it's like the physical injury is what it takes, because anything less than a physical, to get your attention, because anything less than a physical injury isn't getting your attention. So it requires this physical injury. So, you know, could I draw some conclusion in this line of thought? I could draw perhaps a conclusion that you chose this incarnation to see if you could slow down, and you have all of these opportunities to work hard and go fast, but are you going to be able to achieve slowing down and just being? Now, that's not me at all. That's not me at all. Even though, you know, when I was younger, I did, and you know, I took action and achieved. Now I'm not. It's like, but that's, for me, it's different. For me, there's a sense of being a bit vulnerable. There's a sense of inherent value and worthiness. And that's been an obstacle for me since I was younger. So when I think about the things that aren't working out, if I try to really be observant of the things that aren't working out, it's because I'm assigning a degree of my value to those things working out. If I get that job and I date that person and my health and fitness is over here, I've got all of these things to show the world how amazing I am because I got all those things. That's terrible.
But Jeff, I have a question for you. The person who is saying this right now, that my hidden subconscious mind is one of the app is worthiness, and you know already the thinking machine is telling you this is how I connected things together. But if you ask yourself at the moment, who is the one who is saying this, and you realize that it's the mind again, the whole conscious and subconscious and the hidden agendas of subconscious mind is still the mind. So what happened if you and I can just really say, okay, we trust in a divine plan, and we're just gonna stop doing everything and stop listening to everything and stop not to listen to the mind's question and don't inquire an answer to the question. Because even that, to me, Jeff, I talked about this, I did in my 5 months webinar. I believe it was the first session. I said one of the activities of the mind and ego is that they create a question, they pop up a question, and they look for answer. And then in that finding the answer, they're using up our time, you know. And then it comes up with the answer, and they might agree with the answer, or they might disagree with the answer. And I said, let's do some more searching, which again, they're taking you off from being fully present and quieting down the mind. And I said the other aspect of ego mind is that they create problem and they look for solution. So this is the game that the mind and ego is constantly playing. And if we are not conscious at every second, the mind and ego will just pulls us away and pulls us away. And by being fully conscious is to constantly catch yourself, not to allow the mind. So sometimes people ask me, what about good thoughts? I hear that a lot from my followers. What about the good thoughts? Do we have to cut those off? I said, who is the one who is judging to say, is this a negative bad thought or is it a positive good thought? So when you ask yourself this, you see that there's got to be a mind who is judging the good or bad. So no, you don't allow any thought, because in order for you to realize that is a good thought, you are still in the mind. It's the mind who is creating the question, right? So I said, no, the whole plan, the whole thing is, which I know is the hardest thing you and I know, to be able to quieting down the mind. And even when it comes to the pain, with my arms, I ask the question. I have to remind myself a few times a day, because no matter what I do, it gets worse. I go to physiotherapy, it gets worse. I go to chiropractor, it goes worse. I do the exercises and it gets worse, right? So I ask myself as I'm thinking, what is the lesson here? What is this pain is trying to tell me? Oh, it's what I'm saying all along. You're not your thought, you're not your emotional body, and you're not your physical body. So I get it now. Is for me to be fully separating myself from the body, because the mind, the ego, the body are all the same. They are creation of the mind. So if I'm experiencing pain in the physical body, that means I am in the mind. So this is another reminder of how to separate myself from the body. Let's experience this silence.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That we both became so present that we went in it. So, Jeff, if you're okay, we have a few minutes. I want to do an exercise. I want us all to try this exercise, which helps us to become fully present. Are you okay with that? Is everyone here okay for us to do this practice? Yes or no? Be engaging, guys. Write a comment. Let me know if you want to do this exercise or not. Okay, so here's the deal. The first thing that we do is to become fully present. And as we all know, relax your body, relax your shoulder, your neck, your head. Be fully present to relax the body fully. And what I would like us to think right now, our right hand is our masculine part, and our left hand is the feminine part. So what I would like us to do first, I would like you all to close your eyes and use your right hand up. And I want you to imagine that you are, the mind is creating everything, right? The loss of job, not finding another job, not making money, not finding the partner. Know that the same mind, that is, you are the problem and you are the solution. Know that both of these, problem and solution, is you. So what I would like us to do is to hold our right hands up, and really hold your right hand up. Don't let it fall down. And I want you to think about everything that is not working out in your life right now. All the problems. Hold your hands. And know that our thoughts can be really heavy. Our thoughts have weights. So I want you, as you're holding your right hands up, think about all the issues you have. Is it financial? Is it job? Is it losing money? Not being able to find another job? Is it relationship? Do you want to be in a relationship but you don't find the right person? Are you in a relationship and you want to walk out and you can't? Whatever issue and problem you have, hold it in your right hand. Give it to your right hand and feel your hand. As you're holding and putting all the problems in your right hand, see how light or heavy your hand is right now, by knowing that our thoughts have weights. So as you hold your right hands up, this is your masculine. This is the thinking mind. This is where the mind is creating these problems and issues. And I want you to hold all of them in your right hand. Just feel and experience how light or heavy your right hand is. Experience how these problems or issues are putting weight on your body. Now, what I would like you to do, slowly, slowly, to bring your right hand down. Place it on your leg. And now I would like you to bring your left hand up. Your left hand is the feminine energy. And I want you, as you're holding up your left hands up, just repeat after me. Dear universe, God, higher power, divine plan of all, your majesty, your supreme, the whole universe and God, I am giving all these problems and issues to you. I am sure that you can take the whole burden. I know that you know much, much better how to handle all of these. And I want you to clear out my space. Clear my space. I'm giving everything back to you. My past, my infant years, my childhood, all the dramas, traumas, events, experiences that happened, I'm sending it all back to you. My teenage years, my adulthood, whatever I have experienced till this moment, all the karmas, dharmas, lack, scarcity, heartfelt, whatever put walls around my heart, all the dramas and traumas, I'm giving it all back to you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, divinity. Thank you, the supreme God. And I feel release. Now I want you to bring both hands, right and left, to your heart. Cross the masculine and feminine energy. Hold it here as the whole masculine and energy merge together. Feel your heart. Thank your body for being here with you. Thank you, body. Thank you, mind. Thank you, ego. Thank you, emotion. I'm releasing everything and all of it to the universe. And I'm empty here, starting to surrender totally and fully to the universe. I surrender. I stop the doing. I know I am a human being. And by being, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to say anything. I embrace the silence and I stay here. I am safe. I am protected. I love you. I love myself. Thank you, guys. Take a deep breath, inhale and exhale. Oof. I feel so much better, and I got all this crack in my back and neck. Everything.
Great.
How was it?
It was wonderful.
Jeff? Did you feel any lightness or heaviness on your right hand?
I actually felt like a pain in the center of my right palm.
So do you experience
Peaceful,
a shift? Anything
yes.
feels different? Nice. Beautiful. Thank you. You're a good friend, Jeff. And I thank you, and I thank everyone who has seen me, follow me, not follow me, everyone who like me, love me, hate me, whatever. I love you all, and I'm thanking you for being here. Never forget, I am your creation. So whether we love or we hate, your mind is creating everything. Jeff, I'm going to close this live.
Yep.
Thank you for joining. And guys, if you haven't followed Jeff, please follow him. And I see you guys next week. I think I'm going to do a Farsi live right after this one. And for those of you who speak Farsi, you can join the Farsi live too, because I see a couple of people, they say, we don't speak English. Okay, I'm going to go back to back and do a Farsi live too. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Bye-bye.